Well, the Philadelphia 76ers might be overlooked in the Eastern Conference, but best believe the big man in the middle, Joel Embiid, is not. Putting the league on notice, and he can fill it up. We've seen this over his career. Tied a career high there with 50 points in just 27 minutes on Wednesday, leading to that dominant third quarter that carried the Sixers to a 123-110 W over the Orlando Magic earlier this week. Now, the four-time All-Star and MVP candidate played just 58 seconds there in the fourth quarter. So imagine if he stayed in, we could be talking Kobe numbers, like 60, maybe not. When it comes to most points per minute in game there in NBA history, big fella checking in with some of those GOATs there with Kobe. Speaking of it, when it comes to points there, 1.85 for Joel Embiid. Of course, the big man in the middle for the Sixers. Time to welcome in NBA writer Colin Ward-Henninger there with more of the NBA. And started with the Sixers. Not quite whole this season, of course, still missing Ben Simmons. But are we seeing an MVP caliber year for Joel Embiid here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to consider Joel Embiid an MVP candidate right now, particularly with what he's done, scoring 30 points in 13 of his last 15 games, just absolutely dominating. I mean, you don't see players score 50 points in 27 minutes, except for Klay Thompson. He did it once. But what Embiid is doing really probably changes the calculus for the 76ers right now. Daryl Morey has been steadfast in holding out for an all-star level player, all the picks in a potential trade for Ben Simmons. When you see what Embiid is doing on the floor, Morey has to be thinking, do I really want to waste a season like this by not getting Embiid some help? So you look around the league, teams like Sacramento might be interested with a guy like Buddy Hield. Obviously, Portland and CJ McCollum are names that have been thrown around a lot. Morey might need to think about bringing one of those guys in because you look around the Eastern Conference, who knows what's going on with Brooklyn? Milwaukee's been a little bit banged up. The 76ers are right there, and they have to think that with Embiid playing at this level, even if you bring in another player who's not necessarily an all-star, if he's close to that level, they might be able to do a little bit more damage in the Eastern Conference and potentially make a run to the NBA Finals.
Joel Embiid doing a lot of the damage there for the Sixers. I mentioned there, of course, no Simmons, but also a lot of guys in and out, Curry and others there. Brooklyn trying to find their stride here without Kevin Durant. Even with Harden in place, a road Kyrie, they kind of stay afloat in the East, but we saw a little scare there against Washington. Until Durant returns, can they kind of hold this ship together?
Oh, they just need their assistant coach to keep making plays on the sidelines, and they'll be just fine. No, the Nets really need to think about their situation with Kyrie Irving here, and Irving is holding out and saying that he is not going to get the vaccine. If that means he's only playing in road games with Kevin Durant out 4 to 6 weeks, we say 4 to 6 weeks. Brooklyn has been very conservative with bringing back their stars, so it could be even longer. That leaves James Harden as the sole superstar on that team for home games. And with Kyrie and with Kevin Durant and with James Harden, the Nets have been unbelievable. With Kyrie and Harden, they've been pretty good. With just Harden, they've been okay. So if he's their only superstar, the Nets could slowly start to see their position slipping in the Eastern Conference. And at that point, does Kyrie Irving start to think, hey, maybe I should get this vaccine? Or do his teammates or the front office or the organization start to put pressure on him? These are things you have to look forward to in the second half of the season. And the Nets are in a unique, weird position where home court advantage might actually be a disadvantage for them in the first round. So if they start falling in the standings, say, hey, maybe we end up number 5 instead of number 4, we get a game 7 with Kyrie on the road as opposed to a game 7 at home without him, they might think the number 5 position might be better. So this is just a very strange situation overall, but the Nets obviously are much better with Kevin Durant on the floor, and it's going to be a struggle without him, with Kyrie only playing in road games.
The Nets, of course, out with KD for the past 4 to 6 weeks here. We'll see how that pans out. In Chicago, they may have a problem too. Lonzo Ball will now miss 6 to 8 weeks, have that meniscus surgery there. Can the Bulls kind of keep it together? Because they're in that top 5 range right now. We're talking about those Eastern teams.
Yeah, I think the Bulls will be able to hold on, but Lonzo Ball is so crucial to everything they do on both sides of the floor. They're a much better defensive team with him on the floor, particularly when he's paired with Alex Caruso, and that's really been what has kept the Bulls in those top spots in the Eastern Conference all year long. We know that they can score. We see what DeMar DeRozan can do. We obviously know what Zach LaVine can do. But Lonzo Ball has been that floor spacer on offense, shooting the ball at a tremendous clip from three-point range. Just an incredible improvement since his rookie season. But really what he does on the defensive end, I think, is really where the Bulls are going to miss him the most. I think they can stay afloat, but They were in that #1 spot for a while. I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on to that with the way teams like Milwaukee and Miami have been playing recently. So definitely a big blow for the Bulls with Lonzo Ball being out for that extended period of time.
All right, out west, Golden State. They got Klay Thompson back. That's a good, but they haven't been playing too well with the former there. You're talking about one of the greatest shooters of all time in that backcourt with Steph Curry. Haven't played up to the potential just yet. Kind of evaluate what you're seeing now with Klay back in the fold there with the Dubs.
Yeah, I think, there was that initial just joy and tremendous just exuberance that Klay Thompson was even back on the floor after being out for 941 days. I was in the building for his return. That was the loudest I've ever heard Chase Center since I've been attending games there. So the fans love him. His teammates are so excited to have him back. Now we shift to, hey, how does he actually look on the floor? And we've seen glimpses, but remember, Klay Thompson's only been playing 20, 22, 23 minutes. So over the course of the second half of the season, we're really going to need to see how Klay performs once he starts getting larger minutes. And that's going to come down to how he plays offensively, whether he can shoot the ball, whether he can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, but also defensively. Remember, the Warriors have the #1 defense in the NBA, and that's a large part of their success so far this season. Klay Thompson used to be the defensive stopper, the guy that you could put on the other team's best perimeter player. Is he going to be able to get back to that level? And if he can't, what does that look like in the playoffs in terms of rotations and personnel for Steve Kerr? So Klay Thompson's journey back to being the player that he used to be, one of the key storylines I'm looking for in the second half of the season. If he can get back to where he was, the Warriors are probably right there as a co-favorite to win the NBA title.
Time will tell there. Elsewhere, staying out on the West Coast, the Lakers, it's been nothing but drama. You can point the fingers at LeBron James, but look, he's 37, dropping 30 points. Russ is having trouble woes when it comes to shooting the ball. If we're looking at somebody to save them, Anthony Davis, could a possible return kind of reignite the Lakers' chances of getting into the postseason, maybe making a championship run here?
Well, that's the only hope, right? That's all they've got left. Frank Vogel might be fired. Russell Westbrook is getting benched in the fourth quarter with the blessing of the front office. I think the one person you can't point a finger at is LeBron James, who's just been tremendous. But he's 37 years old, and he's already been injured this year. He was injured last season. The chances of him staying healthy for the rest of the season are probably pretty slim. So that leaves Anthony Davis, a guy who's already hurt. But when he comes back, he needs to play at that near MVP level, that bubble Anthony Davis level that led them to an NBA championship. That's what the Lakers, with all the roster moves that they made, bringing in Westbrook, giving up a lot of their depth, bringing in these older veteran players, it was all contingent on Anthony Davis being an MVP level player. He certainly was not that before his injury. They need to hope that he can be that in the second half of the season if the Lakers have any chance. You get into the playoffs, you have LeBron James, you have a healthy Anthony Davis, maybe Russell Westbrook figures it out. You have to like their chances in the playoffs, but as of right now, this team looks like they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot, not really thinking about a championship at this point in time.
Crazy to think it all depends on how the Brow comes back to come and save the day out there in La La Land. As always, my friend Colin, appreciate you breaking down everything in the association. Take care, my friend. We got a nice little three-piece for you tonight, though. Pelicans taking on the Knicks. Knicks are favored by 4 here. Then, of course, the #1 team in the land, the Suns taking their town to see Luka and the Mavs at 7:30. And then following that game late night, the Dubs, Steph Curry, and the Pacers heading out west, 32-12 in this one. See how that pans out.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.